Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Rethinking Balance Sheet. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Ravindran Navaratnam from Stage 2 Capital. Ravi, welcome to the show. And it's going to be a fabulous show. It's our season-ending show today, the kind of closure to one long season, 30 episodes this season in 2021. And we will be closing with an amazing guest. We have a professor from Heriot-Watt University, Mushtak Al-Atabi, who will be joining us. 30 episodes, 1,720 minutes. I didn't know we could talk that long. 30 different guests. It's been an amazing run. And today's the kind of closure to that. So Ravi, talk us through.
Hello.
Ravi, we can hear you. Talk us through the last 30 episodes and your sort of insights on some of the lessons you've learned over the last 30 years.
Sound, but let me try again.
Okay. Yeah, so it looks like Ravi is having some sound. I'm going to introduce our guest for today. We have the excellent Professor Mushtak Al-Atabi, who is joining us. Professor Mushtak, thank you for joining us. You are from Heriot-Watt University, the Provost and the CEO. And Heriot-Watt's 200 years now, right? I mean, it's amazing for anything to be 20 years, let alone 200 years. It's been 200 years on this earth, so quite an amazing achievement and accomplishment. Talk us through your role as the Provost CEO of Heriot-Watt University in Malaysia. I assume that's part of the expansion into Asia and to continue to take forward the Heriot-Watt brand for the years to come. Tell us a bit about that.
That's right. Thank you very much, Roshan, for the kind introduction and also for the opportunity to be on such a great show. Heriot-Watt University started in 1821 in Edinburgh. It started as a night school, and it started, interestingly, with a conversation between two people. One of them was an educationalist, and the other one was an entrepreneur. He was a clockmaker, and he needed people to make clocks. Back then, these were very fashionable items, and he was unable to get these professionals who can do this kind of work fast enough. So they decided to start a night school. And in 1821, last 2 centuries ago. So past 200 years, now we have students on every continent. We have 5 campuses. And here we are talking about our bicentenary. The campus in Malaysia is part of having this strategic global network. So we have 3 campuses in the UK. We have a campus in Dubai, and we have this campus in Malaysia. And through that, we would like to reach to the economic heartbeat of the world, and also have access to diverse ecological and also cultural dimensions to enrich our work, our research, and our students' experience. So we are leaders in 3 different climate, economical and political systems, and also cultural systems. And we see this as the way for us to deliver the global education that is a necessity, in our opinion, for an inclusive and sustainable future.
Fantastic. You know, and it's you know, I looking at your background too, right? It's quite amazing, right? I mean, you come in not just as a professor, but you're an entrepreneur, right? To take forward. I mean, we you know, prior to this, we were talking a little bit about your role in Heriot-Watt. Talk us through your background a little bit and your sort of role that you see yourself as provost and sort of CEO, right? I mean, it's an interesting combination, right? CEO of a university. Talk us through what that means.
Well, I'm an engineer. I love technology. I love science. I see this as how the world progresses. When I was a child, I always dreamt of being an astronaut. And when I graduated, I realized that technology is not sufficient. And in order for things to work, you will need that economics and business sort of training. So I actually taught myself everything that I know that is not engineering. And ultimately, I now describe myself as a storyteller. So I believe that what makes us humans, what makes a country, an organization, what makes Malaysia, is the stories that we tell. And in my opinion, I see my role as the person who encourages others and inspire them to tell more empowering stories about themselves and the world in which we live. This could be through telling and sharing and inspiring the vision about an organization or university, or through working with someone and convincing them that they could actually dream bigger and have a better future. And ultimately, this is what education is all about. To me, education is when we convince a person, an organization, or even the community to alter the story that they are telling about themselves so that they could go to the next level of mindset.
And it's interesting. I mean, in this time of pandemic, right? I mean, the education is still an industry in itself, and that you know, and I think we're going to welcome Ravi back into the show. So, Ravi, welcome back into the show. But you know, as part of this whole pandemic, yeah, Ravi, great to have you. And you know, Ravi, I think you missed the first part. We talked about 30 episodes, and this is kind of the closure to our season, our final episodes here with Professor Mushtak. But you know, I want to talk a little bit of the education industry. I mean, with this pandemic, there's been a lot of pressure to change, to reinvent itself for this 21st century, right? And that I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too, because I mean, if you look at how in the Enlightenment time, right, how things changed with Martin Luther, and then the transformation that had, and the equality of human beings that sort of set up with all the liberties, with America being dominant, and then you know, with the changes again over the last 50 years with technology, and then now with another big change, we see sort of education morphing according to the context of the times. Do you see with this pandemic, with all the things that are happening, there's going to be some form of transformation of the education industry vis-a-vis the world, right? The industry as a whole, right?
I have no doubt that this is a time of change, and I personally welcome that. So let me tell you maybe a little bit about what we do at Heriot-Watt, and I could take it to the wider sector. You know, at Heriot-Watt, we are a charity. While we have to sort of be run as a business, we need the revenue, we need to create surplus so we could invest it back into the operation. We need operational excellence, but ultimately we are guided by our higher purpose and also by our charitable objectives. So when the pandemic happened, we had to change. We had to pivot digitally. Everything has to become digital. I can tell you it wasn't that difficult for us, because being a university that has multi-campuses, doing things digitally was in our DNA. I personally have, even before the pandemic, half of my meetings are on Teams anyway. So we used Teams all the while. And it was because my colleagues in Dubai and the others in Edinburgh, when we meet, and we meet very regularly, we do use these tools. Likewise for our students. But when we moved to fully digitally, it was a pivot. It required, we realized all the investment that we made in technology, in training, it immediately paid off, and that was fantastic. But we did other things as well. We introduced what we call responsive blended learning. And responsive blended learning, it means we will give you as a student on a spectrum from a fully digital experience if the campus is closed to a blended sort of combination of on-campus, face-to-face, and also the online experience if we can do this a little bit, or fully on campus if we are allowed. So it's very very flexible. But I think the biggest change that we are going through as an education, and you've referred to the changes that happen in the world. I personally think that any human being brings to this life 3 types of capabilities. I call them the 3 labors. So we bring our physical labor, which is our capability to move things around and manipulate them. We bring our cognitive labor, which is our ability to think and reason and analyze and create and all of that. But also we bring our emotional labor. And our emotional labor is about our self-awareness, our ability to build confidence, to empathize with others. I believe that we have been, as a human race, on a journey to replace ourselves in all these 3 labors. So since the time in prehistoric time where the human being started making tools and making the wheel and domesticating animals and so on, we always wanted something or some other form of energy to replace us in the physical domain. And now we've succeeded with this. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, all our machines now are faster than us physically, they are stronger than us, and they are more capable even in precision times than us. So in the physical domain, the machine has surpassed the human being, largely speaking. And that was the time in the first industrial revolution where people start thinking, maybe what makes a human being is not their muscles, but their mind. Now, remember, in the old history, even to be a king or a leader, you need to be fit. You need to have a good eyesight. You can't be a leader if you are having a disability. That would be a death sentence. So we move to think that what makes us humans is our ability to think and reason and analyze and so on. But, being humans, we have always been trying to build machines that replicate us in that space or even replace us. And slowly but surely, we've seen our machines taking over us or overtaking us in the cognitive domain. So our machines now have better memories than any human being. Then they have better processing capabilities for large data than any human being. And a watershed moment was when Deep Blue was able to beat the reigning human champion in chess in a game that we always thought that it is deeply human and it has something spiritual about it. Now, interestingly, the change, in our opinion, is that as our machines become more capable than us in the cognitive domain, the only domain that's left to us is the emotional domain. And that's our capability to connect with people, our capability to be aware of what is going on inside ourselves. And this is the thing that machines so far were unable to make huge progress at. Now, the challenge is, this is a domain that we as human beings are struggling with as well. And hence, is the largest challenge and the largest opportunity for education and for the society and for government. And I see it as the challenge of our times. And it's so exciting to be able to talk about it and frame it, but also to be in education to address it.
I think you got it spot on. It's that we always talk about it, EQ versus IQ.
Yep.
Right? Even as a student and as an employee, that comes so true. And maybe you could share that. I mean, we're obviously talking about balance sheets, and obviously we've been talking about this for some time. We've had a lot of great HR people in on the show. We don't talk about just let's look at the liabilities and the debts and the assets and how do we account for it, but we were talking about things that may not be seen on balance sheets, but of tremendous values to businesses and companies. And you hit it in the nail when you talked about, emotional value and what people can bring to a business. In that sense, one of the things that I think is heavily involved in this, and the larger the companies are, is how people work as teams. And teams doesn't necessarily mean within your company. It means your suppliers, your customers, how that whole thing works well. And so what is it that you're teaching at Heriot-Watt that, brings value to a business owner like ourselves in terms of what you're teaching, that they're, ready to come in, work with the team? I'm sure that the businesses will bring their own sort of problems. So it's not always the fault of the universities, but let's start with on your side. What have you been doing? What exciting things you've been doing to get, people that can come in and, bring this EQ as well as not just the IQ?
Yeah, very good question. So if you think of these skills, we call them EQ. Some people call them soft skills. We call them power skills because these are skills that empower you to really achieve your full potential. These are the skills that are difficult to teach, difficult to learn, and difficult to measure. So you talk about teamwork. While I could now easily, in maybe 5-10 minutes, I could teach you how to do a simple integration. I teach you, I make sure that you learn, and I could give you a test to ensure that you've learned it. I could tell you all about teamwork, but I'm not very sure that you've learned, and I don't know how to measure it at the end of the day. So this was really the challenge that we went on to address at Heriot-Watt University. And what we did, we came up with a program. We call it the Empower program. So that is a program that develops these power skills to prepare our graduates for that uncertainty and complexity in our future. The program has 4 levels. The first level is about knowing and leading self. And it takes the entire first year, and every student has to go through it. The second level is about leading teams. And the third level is about leading communities. And the fourth level is about leading enterprise. And the students, as they go through these levels from level to the other, they don't earn marks. They earn Watt point, W-A-T-T. Now, Watt is the unit of measurement of power for those technical people in the show. And it's also named after James Watt, an amazing Scottish engineer that we still carry his name. Our university carries his name until today. Now, let me talk about the first level. How do we teach it? How do we inculcate it? The students in the first semester, as a matter of fact, in the first 4 weeks of their journey with us, they will be working on what we call an impact statement. So we ask the students, what impact do you want to have on the world, and what is your purpose? So what is your purpose, and how do you want to mobilize it into a positive impact on the world using your degree, your capabilities, the magic that you bring to the world? How do we do this? Every 10 students will have an impact coach. And most of our staff, academic staff and professional services staffs, are impact coaches. So I am an impact coach, and as we speak today, I'm going to work with my impact group, the 10 students, to talk about their purpose and how do they want to, or how do they plan to convert it or transform it or mobilize it into positive impact on the world. And at the same time, we are after we complete the impact statement, and everyone has their own impact statement, in the second semester of the first year, we ask our students to go and choose a project whereby they are going to have a real, measurable impact on the world. So an engineering student and a business student may share the purpose of their love for wildlife and their interest in making our environment sustainable. Then they will work on having a crowdfunding campaign. I'm not making this up. This has just happened a couple of months ago. They will go and make a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for and donate it to the turtle hatchery in Kuantan. Another group of students may be very passionate about education and making education available. And they, again, went on and raised funds to buy tablets for 10 students who are unable to get it, not from our university, but from another university. So as the student feel that first, they can have that and articulate their sense of purpose. And secondly, while they are in year one, they are able to mobilize it into real impact that they could measure and see. This really empowers them. They feel like, I can do it. Now, mind you, these are people who just like 4 weeks earlier, before we do the impact statement program, when we tell them what impact you want to have on the world, often they would say things like, but I'm just a student, I'll wait until I'm rich. I will wait until I graduate. So we go and say, purpose is a human right, and everyone can and should have that sense of purpose. Now, we take the students through, so when they do this project, let's say they go and do crowdfunding, they not only mobilize their purpose, they have to go and speak to people and convince them to part with their money. They have to work with themselves. So they are building all these power skills. I just want to say one more thing about how we measure it and how we articulate it. So the students at the end of this program, they need to reflect on the skills that they have developed and the skills that they have improved. And they put that in a sort of a portfolio so we could certify that they've earned the Watt points so that they could move on. Personally, I feel many a times people actually sort of have the skill, but because they did not reflect over it, they don't know that they have it. And that is when it's coupled with a sort of an Asian nature of being humble, not be self-promoting. It could be detrimental for our graduates when they go, for example, for a job interview. And that's why our students are highly sought after. Even our first-year students are actually getting paid internship. I was actually very surprised at 1,300, 1,500 ringgit a month as a one-year intern. And almost everywhere I go, people say, can you get me a data students from Heriot-Watt? Do you have an engineering students who could work for my company for a couple of months? So I think it's really the skills. And we've demonstrated that it can be done. And it can be done quickly. But it needs thinking, it needs planning, and it needs an environment in which people believe in these kids. Every one of our staff has to do their own impact statements first. You can't just become an impact coach without developing your own impact statements and going through the process.
Fabulous.
Thanks for sharing. But let me just, I already alluded to the next question, and just to wrap what you said, and I understood it, is that you've got this training, you've got these people, you've got them enthusiastic, you've got them interested in doing impact, and you graduate and you join your company. And this is the scenario, boss says, 50-year-old boss says, no, this is the way we do it. Shut up and listen. What's your feedback? What have you heard from the market? I mean, tell us the war stories and how's that, that I know your responsibility is up to that, the day to get the certificate, but how do we go from there?
Well, actually, our responsibility, we never see it as stops at the day we give them the certificate.
Okay,
and we keep that connectivity with our alumni. And the Watt Club, by the way, which is the association of our alumni, is the largest. It has the largest number of alive alumni of any British university in the world. And they are very engaged, and we want them to be successful and rich, and we want them to pay back, because we have actually a number of our alumni who are donating back money so that we could use it to educate more students. Yeah, but let me go back to, if you go to a company and the boss says this is the way to go. Actually, this is standard, isn't it? Even when they are doing their final year project, or we are working on the crowdfunding, there will be people who say, let's do it that way. This is my way. And we encourage it. We say, this is fantastic. This is conflict. Let's first understand why the other person, whether it's the person who's working with you or the 50-year-old boss, why is he or she thinking like that? What does he or she value? What are his or her worries? Let's address those. And let's do them in a practical way, in a respectful way. And I haven't prepared for this, but this is a story that I heard from one of the employers in the data sector. I won't name them. They said, Heriot-Watt students, they come, they start challenging this. They challenge how we approve leave. They challenge how we do the expenses form. They challenge this, they challenge that, but they challenge it in a way that they are producing an alternative. And eventually we follow. Now, not everything will change, but they say these kids are different. While sometimes, when they compare them to other graduates, they just say, what is your process? My process is take this form, put it here, sign it there, bring it back to the same stage. And people say, why do I make the form going back and forth? Why don't we just make it happen and cut the processing time? So I think at the end of the day, it's really about emotional intelligence. It's about understanding the other person, what do they value, what drives them, and try to produce a reasonable solution. And I don't think that there's any business leader who would say, oh, I don't want to save time, or I don't want to increase efficiency. So I think these are there are skills that we ask our students to welcome. These are things when they happen, when the boss says, don't do it, isn't that fantastic? Isn't this an opportunity for you to utilize that muscle that we have been talking about sort of in theory or in class or in a project at the university level for the past 3 or 4 years? We say, go for it. Let's do it.
Fantastic. And we're going to take a quick short break, but before that, I want to let everyone know we're going to have a giveaway. So we've got a book written by Professor Mushtak, and it's Think Like an Engineer and Shoot the Boss, right? So there are 2 different books, and we're giving away both these books to the most engaging comment or the most engaging question. So if you're a guest and you're watching, now's the time to share your comments. I see a couple of comments coming in. It's nice to meet you, Professor. And Husni, who's always there, he says, a lesson in nobility there by making impactful projects like this in reference to your earlier comments. And so keep those comments coming, keep questions coming. And at the end of the show, we're going to give away 2 of this special book written by the professor himself to our viewers. So our closing episodes, we have gift to give away. We're going to take a quick 30-second break. We're going to just have a quick Necole break, and we'll be right here back on the Leaderonomics show in a bit. So with that, we'll go to Greece today. And
θυμάσαι προχτές που μου έλεγες ότι ήθελες να μάθεις πώς να γίνεις καλύτερη στη δουλειά σου? Βρήκα την τέλεια λύση. Ναι, σήμερα το πρωί άκουσα για μια καινούρια app, ονομάζεται Necole. Πρέπει να πας στο διαδίκτυο, να την κατεβάσεις και μετά βρίσκεις άρθρα, podcast, βίντεο, ό,τι θέλεις από διάφορους ειδικούς από όλο τον κόσμο και τα βλέπεις όλα στο κινητό σου. Ναι, πρέπει να πας στο digital.leaderonomics.com και να κατεβάσεις την app. Και μετά μπορούμε να μαθαίνουμε μαζί, ναι. Οκ, καλά. Πρέπει να πάω όμως τώρα, με περιμένω. Άντε, θα σε δω στην app, yeah? Οκ, γεια. Πού έμεινα τώρα?
welcome back to Rethinking Balance Sheet. We are with our special guest today, the CEO and Provost of Heriot-Watt University, Professor Mushtak Al-Atabi, who's joining us. Very engaging conversation, very exciting. And for those of you, just a reminder, we're giving away prizes to the most engaging, the most exciting questions, comments that come from the guests. So if you keep those comments coming, and from time to time, I will disrupt the conversation to highlight some of your conversations. Ravi, I know you had a whole bunch of exciting questions that you wanted to grill the professor on, so I will give you some time and not try to interject too much. But
I don't want to scare season 2 guest away, Roshan. So I think it's always been our view. It's a nice morning coffee chat, and we'll stick to that script. But on that note, Prof, you've just basically, I think Roshan's right. You've got us very excited about what you've been saying, and I think a lot of things that there's a part of us like parents, there's a part of us who are employers, and this is an expensive venture. Education. I've got 2 boys in university in the UK. It's an expensive venture, and we're investing a lot in this, and you want to make this useful, what they learn at university. I'm as a parent, I know it's growing as a person. That part I get it. I get that. But as an employer, and I'm going to give an example. And I think before the show, we talked about economic complexity. And just to share that with that is that, one of the differences is productive knowledge and knowledge at university, right? And we looked at it, and part of that study on economic complexity is productive knowledge. Let's put it difficult, and most of us Malaysians know, EdMaths was difficult in school. A lot of people struggle with EdMaths, right? But even if you had a distinction in EdMaths, you can't get a job because it's not productive knowledge. You probably could tutor, maybe. That's the best you could probably do. But if you knew how to, cut meat, you could be a butcher, and that's productive knowledge. It can be produced to economic value very, very quickly. So one of the challenges that we find as employers is that, and it becomes more difficult when it comes highly skilled work. It comes more and more to skilled work. At university, you can't picture the problems. And I like what you said about, trying to get out there. And that struck a chord with me. Go and do something, because you sit in a classroom, just no way you can answer that. And just to share a little bit of it, when we actually presented previously, about 2 years ago, to the government and EPU on the 12 Malaysia plan, I had my young staff with me. And we went to the presentation, and we had all the people in the economic planning unit in front of us, or some of the even ministers, and we presented it. And we said, I asked my staff, and not prepped, asked them, where did you learn more? In 2 years at Sage 3 or 4 years at university? And enthusiastically they answered, at Sage 3, because it's productive knowledge. You've learned more in that. I said, obviously,
plus you're the boss, right? Plus you were the boss, so it's hard to say anything else.
The boss is informing you the bonus, so it's the question, after the bonus. But how would you react to them getting that productive knowledge? And I know there's a lot of discussions that get people in industry and universities to work together. I suppose it's a holy grail that it's going to be a discussion for a long, long time to come. But how would what's your view on this?
You see, I'm thinking of this as a question about the role of the universities. As you speak, I was actually just very quickly came into my mind. Let's close all the university, send everyone to Sage 3. Will that work? From SPM, or maybe then let's close the school. They send them to Sage 3. I think every stage has important things. I'm sure that these students who came to Sage 3 after completing their degree, they have learned something. They've learned, I'm sure they've learned something. Now, sometimes there are things we take for granted because we are not aware of. I sometimes interview people and I say, have you dealt with conflict? And they are like, conflict? No, I was so blessed. I never dealt with conflict in my life. Really? You've never dealt with conflict in your life? You never had an argument with your sibling, with your wife or husband, or with a friend, or so sometimes actually they are not aware. But you talk about there is knowledge that is needed. If you're an accountant, I think the university will teach you certain things, and these are important, and they are very professionally accredited and so on. And if you are an engineer or doing business or whatever that might you be doing. So the thing that is happening now, we are taking all of that for granted. Actually, when you go for a job interview and you bring all your engineering certificate, often they say, look, you've gotten an engineering degree from Heriot-Watt, it's first class. I won't ask you to design a heat exchanger for me. Leave that aside. Ravi, let's have a conversation. Tell me about teamwork. Tell me about that. So what we are saying is that, to me, very useful knowledge, it started to be taken for granted. And that's absolutely right, because this is the knowledge that we know how to teach, we know how to learn, and we know how to measure. So leave that aside. The real thing now is the muscles that you are building through AdMath. And the complexity of the world actually requires AdMath. Now, where is the missing link? The person who is doing AdMath, if we don't teach her or him that this is how you are building the higher order thinking skills, and then you could deploy them in whatever job you are doing, even if you are cutting meat, by the way. Because you see, the way you cut meat, it's all actually, if you know more about heat transfer, how you treat the meat, it actually could improve slightly the taste of the meat, and it adds value. Now you think of any product that we have, your phone, your car, if you think of the real thing, it's probably 30%. That's the cost of the material. What is the added value? It's marketing, it's storytelling, it's teaching you how to use it, it's convincing you that it is this, you need that technology and it's not that complex, all very soft things. And these are the things that you can't see them. How do I do that? And the other thing, they happen at a longer time scale. So I could teach you 1 + 1 = 2, immediately you'll learn it. But for me to say, what is your purpose? I need to ask you a question. I need to ask you to go back and think about it. I need to ask you to come back. The last thing I want to say, which I'm actually thinking that the universities are here to stay. And they will need to change, but they are here to stay. The main challenge we have with students in the sector is not their ability to learn, or it is actually their motivation to learn. Because if you think, it's not about content. If you talk about content, the content is available for free online. Okay, so why do you pay me huge amount of money Ravi, and send your kids to the UK. Why? Because you know it's valuable, because there'll be someone who will be the architect of the learning and will maintain through the choice of engagement, the choice of material, and the other things that are going on, will maintain your kids' interest, so they actually complete whatever degree that they are completing, so they at least have the basic. And I think that is the thing that is so important. Otherwise, I honestly, anything that I could teach, I could find a video of better people teaching it online for free. So why are you coming to me? Why are you paying me a lot of money? This is the value that people don't see.
And I think you're spot on. I mean, your earlier analysis about domains, right? The physical domain, the cognitive domain, and also the emotional domain, and the fact that both the physical and the cognitive domains are being eroded by technology. We are left with the emotional domain. And I think, I mean, looking back at my own university education, is not so much the content, it's the context. And it's the soft skills, right? Being, deciding, I had a scholarship to the US, and I decided to run for student congress president, and it gave you all kinds of confidence, when you take on the Americans and win, and it sets you up in a very different contextual sense. So I think there is some merit to what you're saying. We've got a ton of questions strolling in from the different folks. Ravi, I'm just going to take a couple of questions and I will get back to your line of reasoning. But Fatia asked a little bit about the 12th Malaysia Plan and education specifically in regards to the 12th Malaysia Plan. I'm not sure whether you could very briefly maybe address your views on that, if you have any.
Yeah, I read the 12th Malaysia Plan, and I think it is very aspirational. What I've seen is generic enough to be shaped, and I see a large investment. The anchoring thing is, for everything that we are putting there, we need talents and we need skills. And without we taking our graduates and the entire society to a higher pay kind of level, I don't think we will be able to achieve any of these goals. I see that move towards reducing dependency on foreign workers, which means we need to upskill our Malaysian citizens. The thing that I would like to also bring, which I hope it would be scoped in the implementation, is don't think of the Malaysian economy only. So what the pandemic has taught us is that any one of us could actually work anywhere. Now, where do you think I am? You would assume that I am in Malaysia, but how would you know? Maybe I'm in London, or I'm in Singapore, or I'm somewhere else. So imagine if we start preparing our knowledge workers to be ready to work in anywhere, and that would require not only the skills, but also the legal framework. How are we going to tax these people? How are we going to make it very easy for them to sell their skills to the highest bidder outside? Yep. And partly also to leave a space for those who want to work within Malaysia. So this is very quickly my thoughts about the education in the Malaysia Plan.
No, I think I mean, you have some valid points in there, and maybe later we can come back to that, Ravi. We got a couple more questions. I just want to take. What can be done to reduce the brain drain? I mean, and we see that. I mean, politically, the situation is such that many people are said, I've lost hope and are migrating, and with that, a lot of talent is also leaving. Is there any opportunity that we can take, or is there actions that we need to take to address that?
Well, I think first we need to understand why the brain drain is happening. Malaysia is a beautiful country. Everyone I know who is not Malaysian would love to live here. So I think honestly, and I'm sort of 80% Malaysian now, because my wife and my kids are Malaysians, and I have a lot of affinity with this country. This is one of the best countries in the world, and I've been to places and I lived
and agree with you there.
Wonderful. So I think if I were to pick one thing, it's the low pay. Sometimes when I look at a fresh graduate, not from Heriot-Watt, by the way, but there are fresh graduates who are paid 1,500. I mean, how are these people going to, kickstart our economy? When will they buy the first car? When will they buy the first house? So I think we really need to move into that economy in which we add value that is so differentiated, value that the robots, the machines cannot add. And it's that stuff that I'm talking to you about, is the emotional labor, the emotional capabilities, the ability to build trust and sell something that costs you 100 ringgit for 1,000 ringgit, because you convince them that it's the best product, and it's because it's designed in a way that will really make a difference in people's life, make them more productive, make them feel good about themselves. And this is how we make value for each other. And I think that is a key. In my opinion, the people who have left to Singapore and other places, I mean, there are other issues, we are all aware of them, but I think economically, it's the pay that people want, and also the progress in life. When it comes to quality of life, I don't think there's any country that would beat Malaysia, actually.
Yep, and I got a couple more comments. I mean, Kiran shares, I like your analysis. It's the value, skills, and tools that they learn and develop while at university that carries them through their work life. With the correct system in place, the kids will be able to connect the dots. And Daniel adds to that. I think Daniel says, not sure if you'd agree, but I believe that the biggest reason why universities will always maintain its place in our educational stage is the fact that employers will actually use university degrees as a major screening tool for assessing sort of applicants.
And this has a reason, isn't it? So if a person is willing to pay a salary for I don't know how many months, I think it goes beyond just the screening. But if as long as employers are seeing value in this, it means we are adding value, and I think the universities will stay. But I just want to say, it's not in its current form. I think there will be more move towards the teaching, learning, and measuring the difficult to teach, learn, and measure. And that's an existential challenge for education generally, because we have been for so long protected by just being our ability to teach math and physics and chemistry. And this is definitely eroding. The other thing is the difficult bit, the power skills. Is the thing that will make our day.
Okay, and again, there's so many questions coming in, so I'm just going to rush through some of them. Apologies to our viewers out there, but Eva says, "Hi, Professor. How have pandemics reshaped education? Particularly, there are some less affluent and digitally savvy families and students who are far left behind, which widens the digital divide. With more classes having been shifted from physical to online, how can educators help these families and students to overcome such challenges?"
Well, unfortunately, that is a reality. But let's just imagine that the pandemic happened 20 years ago. I think some people would have been out of education. So I think let's count our blessing. And I think the fact that technology is becoming cheaper and cheaper by the day, at least I hear that people have a mobile phone. Maybe they are all sharing it. They are having some sort of education, but it is definitely something that requires the intervention of government to ensure that people do have access at least to some tools so that they could connect with and also the businesses. I think there is a social responsibility towards the societies in which they are operating and they're making their profit.
Okay, and there's a comment from Shen Yuan, and I think it's kind of a question also. I think this is in reference to the earlier brain drain piece that you talked about. Some of these issues are the same for businesses as well, not just unlocking the value of university degrees from the business point of view, but brain drain from one business to another. Do you think this would be a problem with the systems the leaders created rather than focusing on how and what should be done on the ground? Again, the system in Malaysia specifically, I think when we talked about that brain drain piece. Your thoughts on that?
So let me give you a real example. We actually have a position of a senior manager in professional services, and we've gotten a person who is a vice president in another organization wanting to join. And we were shocked. We actually asked her, why are you doing this? And it said it's the purpose that Heriot-Watt is driving. Is that work that you are doing with the students? I want to do this. So I think the real value is for companies and businesses to articulate their purpose. Why are they there? And I think that will help to an extent, at least with the brain drain. If the only thing people are comparing is pay, then it's almost impossible to retain your people, because if someone wants to pinch your staff, they will go and they give them 10%, 20%, 50% more, and they will take them. But if people are feeling that they are on a mission to do something, and that's the thing that we do with our students, because there is a sense of personal purpose, but I think there's also an organizational purpose that could bring the entire organization together. And this is extremely powerful. And I think this is the biggest question for leadership. You know, leaders, yes, they need to know how to read financial analysis statements and so on, but actually to be able to drive the purpose and articulate it, I think that would be an amazing capability of a leader.
Yep. And, you know, one of the things we wanted to talk about is the next question, actually. It's in regards to future-proofing the students, and also in terms of future-proofing businesses to some extent, the future of work, right? And I think let's learn simulation. I think this is a business or a person, is asking what would the one thing universities need to pay attention to in order to future-proof students. And I think, I take the question further. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the future of work in general, your thoughts on where that is moving towards. And I guess universities would have to align to where that is taking us somewhat. Your thoughts on that?
So simulation is good, data is good, coding is good, and none of it will, in my opinion, future-proof anybody. It's good. Please go and learn it. But in 5 years, you'll find, the machine now can code for itself. So I think what we know is that there is so much uncertainty and so much complexity. We need to teach people how to learn. We need to teach people to remain optimistic and positive when things are dim. In the future, people will lose their jobs more frequently. It will become part of life. We need to actually prepare people for, if you lose your job, that's a good thing maybe for you to move to the next thing, rather than, the whole world is falling on my head. So how do we do this? If I were to answer this with one word, it's purpose. So if you know what is your purpose, why are you on earth for, then you will be able to deploy it in a variety of ways, and you'll be able to be motivated enough to learn the new skills, because all of us will need to, in every 3, 4, 5 years, we need to learn new skills. How many of our educators said, I can't do digital, I don't know how to do it, I don't know how to download the thing. And when the pandemic came, when they had no choice, within a week, everybody was eventually online. So I think this is the most important thing. Let's be aware of our purpose.
Fantastic. Ravi, I know you
on that
wanted
note
to...
of purpose, I think where we left off that conversation, and I like what you said, it's that motivation, because even if if you just look at it, you said you could get somebody could teach you something better than you can, and the willingness to go online, watch it on a video, etc. But again, that comes to that interesting thing. But I do know one model that really worked in the accounting profession. The Institute of Chartered Accountant is a gap above any university anywhere else, and it's highest paid because it integrated studying with professional course, and it's been a winner for a long time. But again, I suppose the challenge is, how do we get, like you said, you don't leave the students out there, but again, perhaps it's how do you set purpose, etc. I get that, but how do we actually begin to understand this, where we left off 20, 30 years ago, and there's so much new stuff happening out there in the universities, right? How do we actually get business leaders to start listening to the younger people? And of course, they must be obviously motivated. And how do we actually get that change to take place so that we get the value that you're talking? I mean, you guys are doing all this good stuff. You want to say that, and there's mindsets. Let's never forget. You go to conversation. Oh, bloody hell! Strawberry generation. You say something, they're all gone before you can even say. Don't want to work hard. Hey, when I worked, I started life. I was in the office at 7 and I left at 11 at night. Hey, these guys want to go back now. How do you get this change? There's that gap. How do you close that gap and then get value out of it? Have you given thought to this?
Yeah, well, honestly, at the end of the day, if these are the workers that are available and you need them, you better work with them. You have to listen to them. You can't just judge them. Now, these are kids who work really hard. When they wanted to raise funds for the turtles. They didn't sleep. They did the whole thing on their own. We didn't even teach them how to do crowdfunding. They worked it out themselves. Now, what we did, we worked with them on their purpose. Now, if my purpose is Ravi will pay me 2,000 ringgit at the end of the month, I tell you, that's not a very exciting purpose. And if Roshan will pay me 3,000, I will leave, and maybe Roshan will allow me to stop working at 6 o'clock, and I don't have to learn new things. So I think we really need to move the conversation from the compensations and benefits and so on into what impact do you want to have on the world. And if I'm running an account company or a factory or a restaurant, I actually would like to talk to my staff, and I say, how are we helping these people to be better off by cleaning the dishes better, by presenting the roti chana in a better way? Because I really feel there is a sense of purpose in everything. Now, when we do the work without thinking about that, we are losing a big trick. Now, is this an easy thing? Absolutely not. Is this something that I could talk about it once and I'm done? Absolutely not. Is there a way around it? I believe absolutely not as well. So that's that sense of purpose. I think if you are reading any report from KPMG, PwC, they will talk about what get companies through this challenge and what get leaders through this challenge is the sense of purpose, because it was very challenging. The revenues are plummeting, people are losing their jobs, and we as human beings, we could lose our bearing very quickly. So I think that sense of having strong sense of purpose is such an important thing. And I think if education is to teach anything, it should be this, because the moment you want to do it, having even a negative sense of purpose would drive you. Look at the terrorists. Because they believe in what they do, they learn how to make bombs on their own. The knowledge is there. The issue is not knowledge at all. It's the drive. If you're motivated,
it's the drive, the desire.
I hit it on the nail, and that's where the problem lies. It's not my firm doesn't know what purpose it is. It's very clear we know what purpose we're doing, right? We're absolutely 100% clear what we are doing, and we need people to do work on that purpose. I suppose what happens is, in real life, is that you can't get the job that you're really passionate and want to do about. And I think in the end, a lot of people probably settle, well, this was the only job I got, I will take it. But they knew damn very well from day one when they joined, the purpose of the company they were joining was not quite what they wanted to do. And you can only do it, and I keep telling my staff, you can only do corporate finance well if you love it. That's why at 57, I'm up at 5 in the morning and I see the 12 at night, because I'm passionate about it.
So Ravi, let me just challenge this. I think if the person really knows their purpose, they would have not joined a company that does not drive that purpose.
Absolutely.
Let me just challenge. I know we're running out of time. Let me challenge this one more time. I have facilitated impact statement sessions for CEOs, for very high-ranking people, very mature people, and almost many of them, they started by like, Mushtak, we'll do this with you because you are a nice guy and so on. And as you know, people like me, they already know their purpose. I say, okay, what's your purpose? My purpose, actually, you don't know your purpose until you write it down. And when you start writing down, you will realize that you are not sure what is your purpose. It's
Absolutely.
One statement, the thing that you wake up for in the morning. And then after they do the session, they say, so your kids are doing this at the age of 18? I think they're lucky. I think this is the way to start. So I think this is really the important thing that the entire education system, the entire community need to focus on, because this is the only one thing that we know eventually it will work.
I couldn't agree more on this issue of purpose or passion, whichever you want to call it. And just to share a story, my sister-in-law runs, she's very senior in the government in hospitals, right? She's very, very senior. And she's got doctors. And this is something you spend 5 years to become a doctor, plus a year houseman, 2 years A-level, 8 years, and they're coming and they're crying in the hospital, oh, I don't want to work. Oh, why did you become a doctor? Oh, my parents wanted me to become a doctor. And I think this is a real problem in...
No, absolutely. And, I it's been such an engaging conversation. It's already 55 minutes and we're still talking and talking.
We got passion.
And you know, I think one of the comments from someone says, you know, it's amazing to see how passionate you are about the education industry. We've got two more viewer comments. And we're going to choose two comments or two questions that are the winners. So we'll announce that in a bit. But I'm just curious. I mean, we're talking, you know, just now you were talking a little bit about the future of work and a little bit in terms of how the industry is changing and this whole drive towards teaching emotional constructs or things like purpose and things that really will drive. And you know, one of the things I'm working on personally also is, you know, we look at everything going on demand, right? Marketing going on demand. You know, you say Bali and boom, a Google ad comes in front of you. Here's a holiday to Bali. You know, do you see the education world moving towards on demand with all the changes where, you know, I have a problem and that's one of the solutions. I mean, Necole and Clayton and some of the other solutions we're working on is ultimately say, look, when you have a problem, the solution should come to you. So learning and universities will more and more start to craft learning on demand because there's too many problems, too many variables, too many issues in this world. Where do you see that moving? I know it's still far away, but do you see that as a potential down the road?
I think it's very important to see education as a spectrum. So there are people who know what they want. I know I need an MBA because with the MBA, I'm going to be promoted, blah, blah, blah. These people are motivated. They will go and get it. And absolutely, this has to be on demand. It has to come to you on. Now, if I ask my son, would you like to go to school? He say, no. Maybe he doesn't want to go to school. I actually asked one time. I asked my son, do you want to go to university? He say, do I have a choice? If I have a choice, let me think about it. So I think the whose demand is it? The parents' demand or the kids' demand? So I think the basic education, the primary, the secondary, and to a large extent the tertiary, plays into this notion of, you know, curating knowledge, ensuring that you will do these things, and then you become an engineer or an accountant, and nudges you here and there. There is peer pressure. There is so much. So that bit, I think there'll be more curation at compared to the professional one where people are motivated. And mind you, the people who made, I'll pick in engineering, the biggest achievement, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, these people didn't go to real university or didn't even complete it for a very simple reason. They know what they wanted to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Once you're clear about it, important thing to think about. But just want to add one thing about the future of work. One thing we are sure of: many of the work that we are doing now is going to be automated, and we need to build people who do not compete with robots, but people who can lead robots and machines. Because the moment you are competing with a robot, you lose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic point. And you know, just to reinforce, Heriot-Watt is celebrating its milestone 200th year anniversary, right? And I think in Heriot-Watt in Malaysia it's 10 years, right? So it's already 10 years that you guys are in Malaysia, and I think there's a call out that you guys are looking and open and ready to take on students for the January 2022 intake. And for more information, you go to hw.ac.uk/Malaysia, and you should be able to check it out. You can also check it out on all the social media platforms. Just Google Heriot-Watt and Malaysia, and you should be able to find lots of insights on Heriot-Watt. So just quick call out. I want to announce the winners. I mean, there are so many comments.
Let me give a call out as well. Any intern from Heriot-Watt in finance want to come and learn the top-end corporate finance?
There you go. And likewise for
guys.
And likewise for Leaderonomics, we're always open.
You know, finance, come send us your email.
Very good. Two quick questions. Again, I'm not sure whether you can take that in about 30 seconds each. You know, we're about 11 now. Your quick thoughts on gender diversity and equality. And another question is from Eva. You know, it's the fact that there's lots of international students that cannot come into Malaysia. You know, is there issues with enrollment and keeping university sustainable in these times? You know, just very quickly, your quick thoughts from Michael Warren and Eva Lim.
So the gender diversity or diversity and equality in general is very important, and it's not about a gift that we are giving to the women. It's an imperative. Heriot-Watt University, interestingly, was the first university in the UK to admit women 21 years before this was a legal requirement. You know, we take it for granted now that women can go to universities, but in the 18th century, that was not allowed. And we were the first university in the UK to allow that, and we continue having this. So currently, Heriot-Watt University has a woman pro-chancellor, Tan Sri Jamila Mahmood, a woman chair of board of directors, Dr. Yasmin Mahmood, and half of our senior leadership team is women. We are members of the 30% club, and we are actually giving scholarships to encourage women to join engineering, because women in engineering is a global challenge. Now, on international students, we are, our hearts go out for our international students who are unable to come to Malaysia, but our students are studying online, and we have very engaging programs, because even my students in Africa and Indonesia and in China, I have them now in my impact group, and I coach them personally, and with my other colleagues as well. And we are looking forward to the borders to be open, because I think the campus-based university is here to stay.
Yep.
The students want it, the parents want it, everybody wants that, so we will do it. Yes.
Fantastic. And so we promised a giveaway, a free giveaway of 2 of these books, Shoot the Boss and Think Like an Engineer. And there's tons and tons of comments that came in. And today we've decided, at least our producers decided, that Eva Lim, who asked I think 10 questions easily, and Daniel Ahmad are the winners of today's special giveaway. So Daniel and Eva, our producers will
be... Roshan. Lots of great questions. I think he's winning it for the long-term prize of asking questions.
Absolutely. And I think the questions are still coming in. And people are saying thanks, great broadcast. Professor Mushtak, this has been absolutely amazing listening to you. And I'm really, really appreciative of your time here with us. So for those of you, thank you for joining in. It's been an hour. It's our final episode. Ravi, your final quick takeaway and closing thoughts as we wrap up this season.
We're going out with a bang. We're really going out with a bang. Do send what you want us to talk about in next year. We'll probably have it a lot better planned next year when we come back. There are lots more areas to cover in the balance sheet: joint ventures, alliances, franchising, many other ways that the balance sheet can be improved. So we'll come back with a lot more topics, probably with hopefully as half as interesting as Prof. We will do pretty well. Yeah. And I wish everybody a better year going forward, and with the pandemic ending. Yeah.
And I'm sure we can always invite Prof back next season. So look forward to next season starting next year in January. I mean, we're going to take a couple of breaks, a couple of weeks of break for the year end and for closing out the year. Prof Mushtak, as we close out the year and this show, your final thoughts for our viewers, or your nuggets of wisdom, or any advice that you want to impart very quickly to us as we wrap up the show.
Well, first, I want to thank you and thank everyone who asked questions, who spent the time with us. But I just want to remind you, don't ask your kids what course you want to do. Ask them, what impact do you want to have on the world, even if you are 5 years old, and listen and be amazed. Thank you very much.
With that, goodbye, everyone. Have a fabulous weekend, and we will see you guys next year in Rethinking Balance Sheets Season 2, and we will be starting Episode 1 sometime in January next year. So we'll see you guys. Have a fabulous closing of the year, and wishing each of you a blessed weekend and a fantastic month of October, November, and December. With that, goodbye, everyone.
Bye.